Thank you. Thank you. To God be the glory. A lot of people's timing is off. A lot of people's timing is off. Right now, we're in the last week of fifth month, last week of Av. We're in the last week of Av right now. I want to bring to you a testament of Rueben. Chapter 1. The firstborn son of Jacob and Leah. Okay. Rueben, the firstborn son of Jacob and Leah, the man of experience. Put this right here. Right here. Say, the man of experience. Counsels against fornication and points out the ways in which man are most apt to fail into error. The copy of the Testament of Rueben, even the commands which he gave his sons before he died, in the 125th year of his life. Two years after the death of Joseph, his brother, when Rueben fell ill, his sons and his sons' sons were gathered together to visit him. And he said to them, my children, behold, I am dying, and go the way of my fathers. And seeing there Judah and Gad and Asher, his brethren, he said to them, raise me up, and I may tell to my brethren and to my children what things I have hidden in my heart. For behold, now at length I am passing away. And he arose and kissed them, and said unto them, hear, my brethren, and do ye, my children, give ear to Rueben, your father, in the commands which I give unto you. And behold, I call a witness against you this day, the God of heaven, that ye walk not in the sins of youth and fornication, wherein I was poured out before Jacob. And I tell you that he smote me with the sore plague in my loins for 7 months. And had not my father Jam prayed for me to the Lord would have destroyed me. For I was 30 years old when I wrought the evil thing before the Lord. And for 7 months I was sick unto death. And after this I repented with set purpose in my soul for 7 years before the Lord. And wine and drink I drank not, and flesh entered not into my mouth. And I ate no pleasant food, but I mourned over my sin, for it was great, such as had not been in Israel. And wine and strong drink I drank not, and flesh entered into my mouth. And I ate no pleasant food, but I mourned over my sin, for it was great, such as had not been in Israel. Hear me, my children, what things I saw concerning the 7 spirits of dust, when I repented, 7 spirits therefore are appointed against man, and they are the leaders in the works of youth. And 7 of the spirits are given to him at his creation, that through them should be done every work and. The first is the spirit of life, with which the construction of man is created. The second is the sense of sight, which with ariseth desire. The third is the sense of hearing, with which cometh teaching. The fourth is the sense of smell, with which tastes are given to draw air and breathe. The fifth is the power of speech, with which cometh knowledge. The sixth is the sense of taste, with which cometh the eating of meats and drinks, and by its strength is produced. For in food is the foundation of strength. The seventh is the power of procreation and sexual intercourse, with which through love of pleasure sins enter in. Lust. Yep, love of pleasure sins enter in. Yep. That's what sin get in at. That's where it get in at. Lust. Wherefore it is the last in order of creation, and the first in that of youth, because it is filled with ignorance, and leadeth the youth as a blind man to a pit, and as a beast to a precipice. Besides all these, there is an eighth spirit of sleep, with which is brought about the trance of nature and of death. With these spirits are mingled the spirits of error. First, the spirit of fornication is seated in the nature and in the senses. The second, the spirit of insatiableness in the belly. The third, the spirit of fighting in the liver and gall. Oh yeah. The fourth is the spirit of obsequiousness in chicanery, that through officious attention one may be fair in seeing. The fifth is the spirit of pride, that one may be beautiful and arrogant. The sixth is the spirit of lying, in perdition and jealousy, to practice deceits and concealments from kindred and friends. The seventh is the spirit of injustice, with which are thefts and acts of rapacity, that a man may fulfill the desire of his heart. For injustice worketh together with the other spirits by the taking of gifts. And with all these the spirit of sleep is joined, which is that of error and fantasy. Spirit of sleep. Error and fantasy, yep, dreams. And so perisheth every young man, darkening his mind from the truth, and not understanding the law of God, nor obeying the admonitions of his father, as befell me also in my youth. And now, my children, love the truth, and it will preserve you. Hear ye the words of Rueben, your father. Pay no heed to the face of a woman, nor associate with another man's wife, nor meddle with affairs of womankind. For had I not seen Belial bathing in a covered place, I had not fallen into this great iniquity. For my mind, taking in the thought of a woman's nakedness, suffered me not to sleep until I had wrought the abominable thing. For while Jacob our father had gone to Isaac his father, when we were in Eder, near Ephrath, in Bethlehem, Bilhah became drunk and was asleep, uncovered in her chamber. Having therefore gone in and beheld her nakedness, I wrought the impiety without her perceiving it, and leaving her sleeping, departed. And forthwith an angel of God revealed to my father concerning my impiety. And he came and mourned over me, and he touched her no more. That was chapter 10 in its entirety. Is that chapter 10? That was chapter 1 in its entirety. Let's see what's next. Chapter 2, these Roman numerals. That's chapter 1 in its entirety. Chapter 1 in its entirety, Testament of Rueben. And it's from the book The Apocrypha. From the book The Apocrypha. Let's see. Chapter 2. Oh, there were 2 chapters, that's it. Chapter 2, what's that? Next. Chapter 3, next. That's going to Levi. Okay. Chapter 3, a prophecy of the coming of the Messiah. A prophecy of the coming of the Messiah. I want to read that. Prophecy of the coming of the Messiah. I'm reading from the Apocrypha, and I'm reading in, like I said, Levi, right? This is chapter 3. Behold, I have told you all things, that I may be acquitted of your sin. Now, if ye remove from you your envy and all stiff-neckedness, not naked, but neckness, stiff-neckedness, is a rose shall my bones flourish in Israel, and as a lily my flesh in Jacob, and my odor shall be as the odor of Libanus, and as cedar shall holy ones be multiplied from me forever, and their branches shall stretch afar off. Then shall perish the seed of Canaan. Yeah, because Canaan was rebellious, man. And a remnant shall not be unto Amalek. And all the Cappadocians shall perish. And all Hittites shall be utterly destroyed. Then shall fail the land of Ham, and all the people shall perish. Then shall all the earth rest from trouble, and all the world under heaven from war. Then the mighty one of Israel shall glorify Shem. For the Lord God shall appear on earth. Say amen. Then shall all the spirits of deceit be given to be trodden underfoot, and men shall rule over wicked spirits. Then shall I arise in joy, and will bless the Most High, because his marvelous works, because God hath taken a body and eaten with men and saved men. And now, my children, and Jacob, no, not Jacob, Judah. And now, my children, and Judah, and obey Levi and Judah, and be not lifted up against these two tribes, for from them shall arise unto you the salvation of God. For the Lord shall rise up from Levi, as it were a high priest, and from Judah, as it were a king, God and man. He shall save all the Gentiles and the race of Israel. See, the Gentiles and the race of Israel. The Gentiles and the race of Israel. That's what's going down during the rapture. Israel, that's us. Therefore I give you these commands, that ye also may command your children, that they may observe them throughout their generations. And when Simeon had made an end of commanding his sons, he slept with fathers, 120 years old. And they laid him in a wooden coffin to take him his bones to Hebron. And they took them up secretly during a war of the Egyptians. For the bones of Joseph, the Egyptians guarded in the tombs of the kings. For the sorcerers told them that on the departure of the bones of Joseph, there should be throughout all the land darkness and gloom and an exceeding great plague to the Egyptians, so that even with a lamp a man should not recognize his brother. And the sons of Simeon bewailed their father, and they were in Egypt until the day of their departure by the hand of Moses. So they was there for 40 years then. I guess they was there 40 years. Testament of Levi now, chapter 1. I already read them there. Chapter 1 and chapter 2 say we take the first one, probably on me, yeah. Alright, I already read 1 and 2. I read them. Let's see. Back up. Testament of Rueben. Oh, okay, yeah, this is a Testament of Simeon, Testament of Rueben. Which one did I read first? Testament of Rueben, chapter 1, Testament of Rueben, chapter 2. All right, Testament of Simeon. Testament of Simeon, right? Testament of Simeon, the second son of Jacob and Leah. All right? No, okay, well, I read that one. Testament of Rueben. Yeah, I read that. Let's go back. Let's read something else in the Apocrypha. At fourth book of Maccabees. How about that? How about chapter 3? Fourth book of Maccabees. Fourth book of Maccabees, chapter 3. Eleazar, a gentle-spirited old man, shows such fortitude that even as we read these words 2,000 years later, they seem like an inextinguishable fire. But when Eleazar replied this eloquently to the extortions of the tyrants, the guards around him dragged him roughly to the torturing place. And first they unclothed the old man, who was adorned with the beauty of holiness. Then, binding his arms on either side, they scourged him. A herald standing and shouting out over against him, "Obey the orders of the king." But the great souled and noble man, and Eleazar is very true, was no more moved in his mind than if he were being tormented in a dream. Yeah, the old man, keeping his eyes steadfastly raised to heaven, suffered his flesh to be torn by the scourges, till he was bathed in blood and his sides become a mass of wounds. And even when he fell to the ground because his body could not longer support the pain, he still kept his reason erect and inflexible. With his foot then, one of the cruel guards, as he fell, kicked him savagely in the side to make him get up. But he endured the anguish and despised the compulsion, and bore up under the torments. And like a brave athlete taking punishment, the old man outwore his tormentors. The sweat stood on his brow, and he drew breath in hard gasps, till his nobility of soul extorted the admiration of his tormentors themselves. Hereupon, partly in pity for his old age, partly in sympathy for their friend, partly in admiration of his courage, some of the courtiers of the king went up to him and said, "Why, O Eleazar, doest thou madly destroy thyself in this misery? We will bring to thee of the seethed meats. But do thou feign only a partake of swine's flesh, and so say thyself, they's gonna bring you some swine. You ain't gonna eat that." And Eleazar, as if their counsel did but add to his tortures, cried loudly, "No, may we sons of Abraham never have so evil a thought as with faint heart to counterfeit a part unseemly to us. Contrary to reason, indeed, were it for us, after living unto the truth till old age, and guarding in lawful guise the repute of so living, now to change and become in our own sins a pattern of young and piety, to the end that we should encourage them to eat unclean meat." Shame were if we should live on a little longer, doing that little being mocked of all men for cowardice, and while despised by the tyrant as unmanly, should fail to defend the divine law until death. Therefore, O sons of Abraham, do ye die nobly for righteousness' sake, but as for you, O minions of the tyrant, why pause ye in your work? So they, seeing him thus triumphant over the torturers, and unmoved even by the pity of his executioners, dragged him to the fire. There they cast him on it, burning him with cruelly cunning devices, and they poured broth of evil odor into his nostrils. But when the fire already reached to his bones, and he was about to give up the ghost, he lifted up his eyes to God and said, Thou, O God, knowest that thou I might save myself. I am dying by fiery torments for thy law. Be merciful unto thy people, and let our punishment be a satisfaction in their behalf. Make my blood their purification, and take my soul to ransom their souls. And with these words, the holy man nobly yielded up his spirit under the torture. I, and for the sake of the law, held out by his reason, even against the torment. Beyond question, then, the inspired reason is master over the passions. For if his sufferings had over his reason, we should have credited them with this evidence of their superior power. But now his reason having conquered his passions, we properly attribute to the power of commanding them. And it is right that we should admit that the mastery lies with reason, in cases at least where it conquers pains that come from outside ourselves, for it were ridiculous to deny it. And we prove covers not only the superiority of reasons to pains, but its superiority to pleasures also. Neither does it surrender to them. It surrenders to pain or pleasure. And you need you keeping your eye on the sky, on the Most High. Chapter 4. This is so-called age of reason. May in this chapter read that the philosophy of reason is 2,000 years old. The story of the 7 sons and their mother. For the reason of the fathers, Eleazar, like a fine steersman steering the ship of sanctity on the sea of the passions, though buffeted by the threats of the tyrant and swept by the swelling waves of the tortures, never shifted for one moment the helm of sanctity until he sailed into the haven of victory over death. No city besieged with many and cunning engines ever defended it so well as did the holy man when his sacred soul was attacked with scourge and rack and flame, and he moved them who were laying siege to his soul. Through his reason that was the shield of sanctity. For our father Eleazar, setting his mind film as a bleeding cliff, broke the mad onset of the surges of the passions. O priests worthy of the priesthood, thou didst not defile the holy teeth, nor didst thou defile with unclean meat thy belly that had room only for piety and tea. O confessor of the law, O confessor of the law, the philosopher of the divine life, such should those be whose office is to serve the law and defend it with their own blood and honorable sweat in the face of sufferings to death. Thou, O Father, didst fortify in fidelity to the law through the steadfastness unto glory, and having spoken in honor of homes or holiness. I must need to put them glasses on. Look at you fast, son. Holiness, thou didst not belly thy speech, didst confirm the words of divine prophecy or divine philosophy by thy deeds, O aged man, that was more forceful than the torturers. O reverend elder, that was tenter strong than the flame. Thou great king over the passions, Eleazar. For as our fathers Aaron, armed with the censer, ran through the mass congregation against the fiery angel and overcame him, so the son Eleazar, being consumed by the melting heat of the fire, remained unshaken in his reason. And yet most wonderful of all, he, being an old man with the sinews of his body unstrung, and his muscles relaxed, and his nerves weakened, grew a young man again in the spirit of his reason, and with Isaac-like reason, turned the hydra-headed torture to impotence. O blessed age, O reverend gray head, O life faithful to the law and perfected by the seal of death. Assuredly then, if an old man despise the torments unto death for righteousness, sick it must be admitted that the inspired reason is able to guide the passions. But some perhaps may answer that not all men answers of the passions, because not all men have their reason enlightened. I'm reading to you from the Apocrypha. Reading to you from the Apocrypha. Forgotten Books of Eden. Now I'm in chapter 4. And verse 13. But as many as with their whole heart make righteousness their first thought, these alone are able to master the weakness of the flesh, believing that unto God they die not, as our patriarchs, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, did not die, or died not, but that they live unto God. Therefore, there is nothing contradictory in certain persons appearing to be slaves to passion, in consequence of the weakness of their reason. For who is there that being a philosopher following righteousness, the whole rule of philosophy, and having put his trust in God, and knowing that it is a blessed thing to endure all hardness for the sake of virtue, would not conquer his passion for the sake of righteousness? For the wise and self-controlled man alone is the brave ruler of passions. Yea, by the means, even young boys, being philosophers by virtue of the reason which is according to righteousness, have triumphed over yet more grievous tortures. Verse 18 now. For when the tyrant found himself notably defeated in his first attempt, and impotent to compel an old man to eat unclean meat, being truly in violent rage, he ordered the guards to bring others of the young men of the Hebrews. Come on now. And if they would eat unclean meat, to release them after eating it. But if they refused, to them yet more savagely. Trying to get them to sin, man. What? And they know it's unclean. Try to feed you some swine. Just like they did in slavery days in this country. Feeding them pigs and stuff like that there. They should have rebelled against that stuff. If they knew, if my ancestors knew, they should have rebelled against it. And under the orders of the tyrant, 7 brethren, together with their aged mother, were brought prisoners before him, all handsome and modest and well-born, and generally attractive. And when the tyrant saw them there, standing as if they were a festal choir, with their mother in the midst, he took notice of them, and struck by their noble and distinguished bearing, he smiled at them, and calling them near, said, O young men, I wish well to each one of you, and admire your beauty, honor highly so large a band of brothers. So not only do I advise you not to persist in the madness of that old man who has already suffered, but I even entreat you to yield to me and become partakers of my friendship. For as I am able to punish those who disobey my order, so am I able to advance those who do obey me. Be assured then that you shall be given positions of importance and authority in my service if you will reject the ancestral law of your piety. Polity, P-O-L-I-T-Y, polity. Share in the Hellenic life and walk in a new way and take some pleasure in your youth. For if you drive me to anger with your disobedience, you will compel me to resort to terrible penalties and put every single one of you to death by torture. God coming to get these folks, man. They've been just torturing us forever. Torturing us forever. Torturing them because they want to eat swine. Torturing them. You know what I'm saying? Trying to get them to just disobey God. With these words, he ordered the instruments of torture to be brought forward in order to persuade them to fear to eat unclean meat. But when the gods have produced wheels and joint dislocators and racks and bone crushers and catapults and caldrons and braziers and thumb screws and iron claws and wedges and branding irons, the tyrant spoke again. You had better feel fear, my lads, and the injustice you worship will pardon you unwilling transgression. But they, hearing his persuasions and seeing his dreadful engines, not only showed no fear, but actually arrayed their philosophy in opposition to the tyrant, and by their right reason did abase his tyranny. And yet consider, supposing some amongst them to have been faint-hearted and cowardly, what sort of language would they have used? Would it not have been to this effect? Alas, miserable creatures that we are, and foolish above measure, when the king invites us and appeals us on terms of kind treatment, shall we not obey him? Why do we encourage ourselves with vain desires and dare a disobedience that is to cost us our lives, eternal lives? Shall we not, O men, my brothers, fear the dread instruments and weigh well his threats of the tortures, and abandon these empty vaunts and these fatal bragging? Let us take pity on our own youth and have compassion on our mother's age, and let us lay to heart that if we disobey, we shall die. And even divine justice will have mercy on us. If compelled by necessity, we yield to the king in fear. Why should we cast away from us this dear life and rob ourselves of this sweet world? You don't have no compassion on y'all. Let us not strive against necessity, nor with vain confidence invite our torture. Even the law itself does not willingly condemn us to death, we being in terror of the instruments of torture. Why does such contentiousness inflame us, and a final obstinacy find favor with us, when we might have a peaceful life by obeying the king? But no such word escaped these young men at the prospect of the torture, nor did such thoughts enter their minds, for they were despisers of the passions and masters over pain. Okay, I'm gonna jump down to verse 21 and read about the vengeance on the accursed tyrant. So God takes the vengeance on him. Let's see. And with these words, the holy youth yielded up the ghost. But while all were wondering in his constancy of soul, the guards brought forward the second in age of the sons, and grappling him with sharp-clawed hands and iron, they fastened him to the engines and the catapult. But when they heard his noble resolve in answer to their question, would he eat rather than be tortured, these panther-like beasts tore at his sinews, and with claws of iron, and rent away all the flesh from his cheeks, and tore off the skin from his head. But he steadfastly enduring this agony said, how sweet is every form of death, from the sake of the righteousness of our fathers. And to the tyrant he said, O most ruthless of tyrants, doeth not it seem to thee that all this moment thou thyself sufferest tortures worse than mine, in seeing that tyranny, arrogant intention overcome by my endurance for righteousness' sake? For I am supported under pain by the joy through virtue. The most high God. Whereas thou art in torment, whilst glorifying in thy impiety, neither shalt thou escape, O most abominable tyrant, the penalties of thy divine wrath. And when he had bravely met his glorious death, the third son was brought forward and was earnestly entreated by many to taste and so to save himself. Oh, he sinned, and he ate the swine. His father died and his brother died. He go eat the swine. But he answered in a loud voice, are ye ignorant that the same Father begot me and my brothers that I are dead? And the same mother gave us birth, and in the same doctrine was I brought up. I do not forswear the noble bond of brotherhood. Oh, okay, he ain't eat no swine then. Good, good. Therefore, if ye have my engine of torment, apply it to this body of mine, for my soul ye cannot reach. Not if ye would. But they were greatly angered at the bold speech of the man, and they dislocated his hands and his feet with their dislocating engines, and wrenched his limbs out of their sockets, and unstrung them. And they twisted round his fingers, and his arms, and his legs, and his elbow joints. Look, he went through all that. He went through all that. Went through all that stuff. Just stay with Jesus Christ. Yeah, you don't want to go to hell. You don't want to go to hell, man. You want to go to heaven. You want the everlasting life, you know what I'm saying? After a little while, you know what I'm saying? Then come down here, be back down here on the planet Earth. You do not want to go to the lake of fire. If you believe. If you believe. See, Lord God was with him. He probably didn't even let him feel all that stuff that they was doing. But he was still alive. His soul was still there in that body. But he wasn't feeling no pain. 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 That's why he's all calm and stuff, wasn't hollering, screaming, nothing. He wasn't feeling no pain. And in no wise being able to strangle his spirit, they stripped off his skin, taking the points of the fingers with it, and tore in Scythian fashion the scalp from his head, and straightway brought him to the wheel. He tore this brother up. And on this they twisted his spine till he saw his own flesh hanging in strips, and great gouts of blood pouring down from his entrails. God gonna get these folks, boy. He gonna get these. You know he long suffering. He gonna get these folks. He gonna get their ancestors. And at the point of death he said, we, O most abominable tyrant, suffer thus for our upbringing and our virtue that are of God. But thou, for thy impiety and thy cruelty, shall endure torments without end. And when this man had died worthily of his brothers, they brought up the fourth and said to him, Be not thou also mad with the same madness as thy brethren, but obey the king and save thyself? But he said unto them, For me you have no fire so exceeding hot as to make me a coward. By the blessed death of my brethren, by the eternal doom of the tyrant, and by the glorious life of the righteous, I will not deny my noble brotherhood. Invent tortures, O tyrant, in order that thou mayest learn thereby that I am brother of those who have been already tortured. When he heard this, the bloodthirsty, murderous, and utterly abominable Antachos bade them cut out his tongue. But he said, Even if thou doest remove my organ of speech, God is a hearer also of speechless. Surely is. Lo, I put out my tongue ready, cut it out. For thou shalt not thereby silence my reason. Gladly do we give our bodily members to be mutilated for the cause of God. But God will speedily pursue after thee. For thou cuttest out the tongue that sang songs of praise unto him. But when this man also was put to a death of agony with the tortures, the fifth sprang forward, saying, I shrink not, O tyrant, from demanding the torture of virtue's sake. Yea, of myself I come forward in order that, slaying me also, thou mayest be yet more misdeeds, increase the penalty thou owest to the justice of heaven. Enemy of virtue and enemy of man, for what crime doest thou destroy us in this way? Doeth it seem evil to thee that we worship the Creator of all and live according to his virtuous law? But these things are worthy of honors, not of tortures. If thou didst understand human aspirations and hadst hope of salvation before God, lo, now thou art God's enemy, and makest war on those that worship God. As he spake thus, the guards bound him and brought him before the catapult, and they threw on his knees, and fastening them there with iron clamps, they wrenched his loins over the rolling wedge, so that he be curled back like a scorpion, and every joint was disjointed. And thus in grievous strait for breath and anguish of body, he exclaimed, Glorious, O tyrant, glorious against thy will, are the boons that thou bestowest on me, enabling me to show my fidelity to the law through yet more honorable tortures. And when this man also was dead, the sixth was brought, a mere boy, who in answer to the tyrant's inquiry, when he was willing to eat and be released, said, I am not so old in years as my brethren, but I am as old in mind. For we were born and reared for the same purpose, and are equally bound also to die for the same cause. So if thou choosest to torture us for not eating unclean meat, torture. As he spake these words, thou brought him to the wheel, And with care they stretched him out and dislocated the bones of his back and set fire under him. And they made sharp skewers red hot and ran them into his back, and piercing through his side they burned his entrails also. But he, in the midst of his tortures, exclaimed, "O contest worthy of saints, wherein so many of us brethren in the cause of righteousness have been entered for a competition in torments, and have not been conquered. For the righteous understanding, O tyrant, is unconquerable. In the arm of you I go to join my brethren in death, and to add in myself one strong avenger, more to punish thee, O deviser of the tortures, and enemy of the truly righteous. We 6 youths have overthrown thy tyranny, for it is not thine impotence to alter our reason or force us to eat unclean meat and overthrow for thee. Thy fire is cool for us, thy engines of torment not, and thy violence is impotent. For the gods have been officers for us, not of a tyrant, but of the divine law, and therefore have we our reason yet unconquered." And that'll be the read for this evening. Amen and amen. Lord willing, I'll be in touch.